This week in IT SPARC Cast, someone tripped over a power cable in Zoom's data center. TP-Link tries to unlink from China. And congratulations, Doom, you played yourself. Greetings and welcome to IT SPARC Cast. I'm your host, John Barger.
And I'm your host, Lou Schmidt. We have survived tax time in the United States. Let's see what's going on out there.
It's Friday, April 18th. IT SPARC Cast is a digest of the IT news over the last week with insights, opinions, and a little sarcasm from two experts, each with over 20 years of experience working in IT or for IT vendors. Lou, did you get your taxes done?
I did. The funny thing was, I had to pay to owe nothing.
Wow.
Love our tax system. That's just because I'm lazy. I'm lazy?
I actually had to file an extension because I'm waiting for something called an ARF. And I don't know what that is. But my accountant said I needed to file an extension because of an ARF.
Okay, so you've got a dog problem. Gotcha.
We do have a dog problem.
Okay, so dog problems.
Let's get on to the news bites.
Yes.
So our first article comes from Slashdot, and it's about TP-Link. And if you've watched or listened to IT SPARC Cast for any period of time, you've heard us talk about TP-Link and vulnerabilities on TP-Link devices. And we've also discussed the thinking out there that it's possible that TP-Link is a vector as a state-sponsored attack on U.S. citizens and other citizens of the West. That is a thought that's out there. There has also been discussions as to whether TP-Link should be banned in the U.S. and other places. Well,
there's been major problems there, yes.
So the discussion is that the U.S. branch of TP-Link is thinking of splitting off from China and becoming its own entity and trying to make nice. Now,
and they have.
And this is something that is maybe similar to what TikTok was trying to do and to try to result in not getting banned from the U.S. And maybe didn't, in the case of TikTok, maybe they did or did not do enough. The question is whether TP-Link is doing enough there. So TP-Link was founded by two brothers. Brother Jeffrey, who's based in Shenzhen, has decided to establish his new headquarters in Irvine, California, and plans to invest $700 million in the U.S. and work on becoming a U.S. citizen. So that's good news, and he seems to be making all the right strides to work on it. The question again is trust. Has too much trust been lost? Can he build back enough trust to make TP-Link a company that somebody would want to put into their home or even more significantly into a corporate network? I don't know, Lou, what do you think?
Here's a question, right? How much of their operations continue to be in mainland China? Because that's always going to be sort of how that scale is going to weigh. The interesting thing is a lot of folks, this stuff all runs on Linux, and a lot of folks run a fairly common distribution. I remember many moons ago, I actually was part of a team that built a Linux-based CPE for a major company, and we ended up acquiring another home router company and said, hey, we built this incredible code base thing that does all this stuff, and it'd be really great, and it'll run on your hardware. And now that we've acquired you, do you want to take this thing over? And they're like, oh, no, we buy it from some company over in the Middle East somewhere, over in Israel, and they support it. And it's like, so part of the question is, it's not hard to reproduce or rebase a code base on Linux to do this. I've done it. But the big question is, what are the vulnerabilities that are engendered by having your stuff made in mainland China? And this is more than just a TP-Link question, right? There's a lot of this stuff is made there. So is somebody violating your root trust? Is, the whole concept of a trust with a trusted platform module, could that be injected? So the interesting thing about this to me is that Congress specifically called out TP-Link.
Yeah.
This is not like, oh yeah, these guys might be bad. Congress was like, oh crap. Right? These guys are deeply embedded because they're cheap. They're not supporting, they're not giving a pathway. There's a major issue here. And the reason we wanted to bring it up here is because we think you're going to see more of this. We know we're going to see more of this. And the question is, how far does a company have to go to separating its operations and productions for you to consider it safe?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if somebody like Huawei goes down this path, or any of the other vendors out there that you could see becoming more and more under scrutiny. And we've seen Huawei kind of getting excluded from some of the 5G deployments out there in some of the Western countries. So, and arguably for good reason. So is it possible to come back from something like that? Is it possible to separate yourself off from a potential hostile foreign government enough that anybody would actually be willing to trust you again? Maybe. I mean, we are now friendly with foreign governments that used to be our enemies. I'm saying specifically the U.S. We used to be at war with Germany. We used to be at war with Japan. Now we're great trade partners with both. So maybe it's possible. Maybe this is something that could be corrected.
I really don't know. I mean, there's a much bigger political and strategic thing happening here, which we're not going to cover.
Right.
But the question is, we're in the process of unlinking, loosening at least the links between China and the rest of the world. That's what's happening. And this is absolutely going to impact us. It's already impacting us. This is one of the side cases that we have to pay attention to. Because the brother that came here, the one, and I looked up the names, not even going to try to pronounce these.
Yeah.
They're Chinese names. I'm sure they're great names. I'm not great at it. I'm not going to butcher them for this recording. But the thing is that the one brother says, hey, he's all in on the United States. He's going to become a citizen. So this may be a big philosophical shift, something worth keeping an eye on, because we're definitely going to see more stuff like this coming. I personally would like to give them a chance, but I would also do a very, very deep security analysis about the hardware and the software. Do checksums and probing and all sorts of good stuff to make sure that
optimistic.
Yeah, cautiously. I'd like to believe that this can be done, will be done. It's not a monolith. We're going to see all sorts of interesting stuff happen here. But it's something you need to keep an eye on if you're in IT, because, folks, this is like the tip of the iceberg, right? The other one is obviously TikTok and how that's going to fall out. And that is also, these set the precedents for other things. So that, keep an eye on that one.
We talk a lot about AI and we talk a lot about nuclear power on IT SPARC Cast. Lou, why don't you bring both those topics together for us?
Well, you got peanut butter in my chocolate and I got chocolate in your peanut butter. It was inevitable that somebody was going to come up with an AI for nuclear power. Okay? And the reason that I wanted to bring this up here, comes to us courtesy of the Wall Street Journal. One, the Overton window has moved significantly on nuclear power recently. Folks, we've talked a lot about it. I track it closely in social media and other areas. I'm a fan of it. If you want a lot of power, incredibly cheap, if nuclear power scares you, just think of it as magic hot rocks, right? When you get these magic hot rocks close enough together, they get hot, we generate steam, everything's good. But we've got this huge power. Cheap power is how you really boost your economy. Cheap power is what we need for computing. It's foundational. Wall Street Journal highlights the fact that on April 11th, there's a resurgence. Nuclear power is back and AI can help manage the reactors. So what happened is Argonne National Laboratory came up with a AI-based tool that optimizes reactor designs and operations. So the problem that we're seeing, the bottleneck we're seeing, is data centers right now. Can we build data centers? And yes, because of economics, things have slowed down and plans have changed, but we still have a huge power deficit for doing AI and other computations. We need juice, and it needs to be cheap, which is why a whole bunch of data centers are built up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, because it's a ton of hydro and wind that goes through the river valley there. But we can't do that anymore. That's tapped out. That's as much as we can get there. So we got to start building scalable, clean power in more places. And the biggest problem with doing that is actually getting through the regulations. The regulations are all screwed up. We've had next generation design reactors for 20 years. I would consider the Westinghouse AP1000 to be probably one of the best large reactors out there for safety and other stuff. And they still have problems getting those things in under budget. So what these guys did is they built an AI model that acts as a digital twin, right? And we've talked about this. We've seen the concept of digital twin within networks. We've seen some companies go forth, build digital twin systems and then move back from them. Because the challenge with doing a digital twin is it has to replicate the system conditions fairly exactly. Now, where digital twin has been very, very useful is in the aerospace industry. The idea of a digital twin is you build this digital model, say of an airplane, and then every time the airplane flies, it's sending you back sensor data. And they're doing this, Boeing's doing this, and Airbus are doing this with commercial aircraft. So that instead of me saying, oh, it's been 300 hours, the schedule says I have to look at this fan blade, I get like, okay, there's been very little vibration there, everything's okay. You can look at this in like 200 more hours. That saves you an unbelievable amount of money, and it gets you better designs. That's what this has done. So the collision of AI technology and the idea of simulating the heat flow, the vibration from the pumps, the metal fatigue, all the areas, how are we getting that energy out? How are we making it? How should the fuel be built? Because what a lot of people probably don't know is when you build nuclear fuel, you have to decide how enriched you want it to be. And normal nuclear fuel is enriched about 5%. And that's called low assay. And the idea is you also mix in some materials that slow down the neutron flux and decay that break down over time. The whole idea is that if you have a fuel rod and you want it to go for 3 years, you want something that dampens the reaction at the beginning, sort of weighs it out in the middle, and then disappears at the end, right? And there's various ways to do that. There's admixtures of boron and other things that you can put in to a fuel system to do that. All of that stuff can now be simulated. So now they're looking at higher assay reactors, up to 20%, which means they can be more compact, and the higher the assay, the more of uranium-235 you have in this thing, the faster it can surge. So if your data center is going to go come on and offline, or you want to do something called load following, these things great. So this is one of those really good examples of AI stepping in a way that is going to save us a tremendous amount of time. What do you think about this?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that when you're talking about really complex systems and there's more variables that a human can look at, or even 100 humans could look at, and where humans get bored and they look away, and where a computer doesn't look away, and where trends may not be obvious to a human. And 75% of the time when the temperature in this one spot gets to a certain point, or when the level of decay looks like this, and you're much smarter about the whole like inner workings of the nuclear reactor than I am, but when these trends happen, this happens on an X percentage of cases. That is the kind of thing where AI is really good at helping us out. And it's things where humans are really bad at seeing. And that's where, and that's true of, helping diagnose cancer research and finding out new cures for cancer. It's true for looking at network traffic and diagnosing what's going to happen on a network and when things might fail. It's all those types of things. And that's where this actually applies not only to a nuclear reaction, but digital twins and AI on a corporate network. That's where we need to get to, right? We need to have a situation where we have digital twins of your network. And when you want to make a change, it runs through the digital twin, and the digital twin plays 3D chess with your network and figures out all the variabilities that might happen, and then says, this is 99.99% good, run it, right? Which no human could ever do. And then, or it says, you know what? Based on what's going on right now, I've run a million different calculations and I've determined that you've got X% chance that you're going to have a breakdown, and you're going to have access point that fails. Maybe you should RMA it. All these other things that's where AI and digital twins can really provide benefit in a IT world. So this really has nothing specific to do with IT, but we just thought it was so cool.
It's just the core of who we are.
It is. So we all know that Doom will run on anything. And just a few months ago, we talked about the fact that you could run Doom inside a PDF in your Chrome web browser. Well, Doom is being released in the Doom Will It Run Collector's Edition that comes in a large box that's about a foot wide and a foot tall, that the box itself runs Doom. So so you heard that right. The box itself has a screen and a USB port. You can plug a controller into the box and you can play Doom on the box.
Wait, is that all you can do though?
No, there's all kinds of things. So this is first of all, the reason I haven't already pre-ordered this is that this Will It Run edition costs $666.66. It's a limited run of 666 copies, really leaning into the whole demonic nature of Doom. And it's got all kinds of things in it. The reason the box is so big, in addition to being able to support the screen, is that it includes a whole bunch of things. It includes a handheld Cacodemon. A Cacodemon is the big giant red head with the horns, with the single. Got a single eye. So it's a cyclops, and that shoots the big fireballs at you. Right. It has a screen instead of an eyeball, and it plays Doom, and it's got controls built right into the body. It has cassette tapes. So I don't know how anybody would be expected to play cassette tapes, but cassette tapes for this game's soundtrack. It has Doom-themed trading cards with a chance to get an autographed card. And I assume that's autographed by maybe John Carmack or one of the other original developers. And then it includes a certificate of authenticity.
And then, of course, you get a game for the platform of your choice as well. You
Correct.
Want to play, I think it comes with all the games.
PS5, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The PC version being available as a digital download from Steam. So pre-orders start April 18th, so right about now, and will end on May 18th. I expect, honestly, that it's not going to make it to May 18th. So if you are interested in this and you happen to have an extra $666.66 burning a hole in your bank account, that you get on right away and you order this, because I don't expect it. This includes every version of Doom that you can imagine. Doom 2, expansions like the TNT Evolution version, the Plutonia Experiment, the master levels for Doom 2, the No Rest for the Living, and Sigil 2. So quite a bit there. Now, at the end of the day, you can emulate all of this and you can get access to most of this and play it, but this is just about the coolest way imaginable to go play it.
It really is. And I would, at any other game, I would say this is jumping the shark. But realistically speaking, it's frickin' Doom. I still play it occasionally.
I do.
It's
I actually just started playing it about 6 months ago. I was actually playing it emulated on my iPad. So going from Doom to Zoom. Lou,
Doom to Zoom.
Bring this on.
That is the best transition ever. Okay, and we're going to give you some news that you heard, but maybe you didn't. So let's talk about this. We're recording this on the 17th, and yesterday there was a rather large Zoom outage. And what's interesting about this, in my opinion, is not that there was an outage, it's that it made news. Because that service has been so solid that an outage of a couple of hours has actually made the news everywhere. This made the news everywhere. And why I think that that's just totally interesting is because everybody's like, well, crap. As you know, we're very passionate about remote work. and the ability to have mobility for your folks to better keep their life in order and to better get things done. Not everybody shows up at 8 a.m. and is ready to work. Some people are like me. I peak in the mid-afternoon to the late evening. I can crank at those times. So being able to time shift and do all this stuff, Zoom is crucial. So more than 59,000 users reported issues on downdetector.com by news. So this one hit probably right after the meeting we had. We had a Zoom meeting. We don't know what the cause was yet. They haven't revealed that. There's some theory that it was a DNS issue. John's theory that somebody tripped over a plug is probably equally valid, in my opinion. But it is interesting to me that we've gotten to the point now where these real-time web services are now considered to be that reliable, that something like this would cause this much comment.
Yeah, and we were talking pre-show, and I think you're right, is that the biggest piece of news here is that this is news, is that a service went down for just under 2 hours. And it's a service that for a lot of people is kind of the lifeblood. So Lou and I were on a meeting from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, and this trouble started happening at just before noon Pacific. So that would have been 3 p.m. Eastern. So an hour after we got off this call, less than an hour after we got off our call, the Zoom issue had happened. And in our previous lives, we were on Zoom all day long. So, and I'm sure many of you are on Zoom all day long. And this is one of those things that would be a big deal. It's like, oh, I can't get my work done. I'm supposed to be on this meeting. What's going on? Hey, did you forget to set up the Zoom meeting? Did you, this could cause chaos. And I started thinking back to the early days of cell phones, and I started thinking about the early days of VoIP, and some of the resistance was the fact that landlines were known to be reliable and had guarantees and SLAs that went along with those landlines, and that we've moved away from some of those SLAs. And that if you have, so landlines, for those of you who don't know, old school landlines, POT systems, had power built into them. So your telephone would work even if your house lost power, or even if the building lost power. And so that was something that your phone would still work. And if your phone ever went out, that was a big deal. Now
it really was.
It really was. Now imagine, like, you lose cellular connectivity when you drive, out of range. But if you're expecting cellular connectivity and you lose it, that becomes, a red flag. If you are out of service, it can cause anxiety. We're now at that point where this could cause anxiety for people. It's just an interesting thing to think about, is where we are as a society right now. So with that, we're going to move on to our CVE of the week.
Oh man, this one's weird.
So our CVE of the week is our weekly segment where we pick a common vulnerability and exposure entry that you need to know about and how to mitigate ASAP. But as you've been watching us recently, you've known that sometimes we don't actually pick a true CVE and we move on to some other security topic that you do need to know about, and we covered that. And we alternate. Some weeks we do CVEs and some weeks we don't. Today we're talking about something that you need to know about. And Lou, what did you learn about in computer world?
Whoa, this one was interesting. So here's the thing, right? We do have to split our time between, oh my God, you need to go out and patch this now. We try never to jump onto stuff that I think is obvious, right? Apple just had a big patch. Great, if you have Apple devices, there were 2 0 days against it, get out there and patch, right? But if you're paying attention, you know that. This one took me by surprise, may take you by surprise as well. So let me go over it. This comes out of Computer World. This is an excellent, excellent point that I hadn't seen yet. And the title of this article from them is Drones Are the Future of Cybercrime. So if you look at a lot of the technologies and techniques that have come about for penetrating networks and malware and such, lots of this stuff has come out of military theory. And if you look at, if you're conversant with electronic warfare, and you probably have a life, so I would assume you don't, there are some incredible things that an airplane or a ship or a surface station with radio emitters can do to break into a network. I can't detail some of them here because some of it's classified, but holy crap, you'd be blown away. But what we have talked about in the past before is Van Eck phreaking, right? The idea that I can electromagnetically penetrate your system. And in many moons ago, when we were early on in this stage, talked about an Israeli researcher that was getting stuff from keyboards and hard drive controllers and stuff like that, reading actual memory from the emissions. The big problem with that has always been, how do you get close enough to do that? That's what this is about. So if we look at that, there's drones in warfare, right? You've seen some amazing amounts of adaptation by Ukraine using off-the-shelf commercial drones, open source software to find different ways to degrade the attacker's effectiveness against them. And one of the things they've been able to do is targeted cyberware attacks. And this is even more interesting. They set up their drones so that if the enemy captures the drone and plugs it into their laptop to analyze the code on it or whatever, it inserts a virus. Or it will send a surge of voltage and destroy the laptop. Or the whole thing will blow up. It's like, you're like, so you're sitting here going, okay, that's interesting, but what does that have to do with me? In 2022, there was an incident where a US financial services company was targeted by drones. Attackers used a modified DJI Phantom drone with a Wi-Fi pineapple on it, which is a general purpose Wi-Fi cracking tool. It used a lot for pen testing. The evolution from a simple consumer drone to sophisticated cyber tools highlights their growing complexity and vulnerability. So here's the thing you got to watch for. It's all about the Overton window of what is thought of as possible and what the attack vectors are. So if I can get a drone onto your roof of your data center and put a fairly sophisticated software radio on it that can listen to your signals, all these theoretical Van Eck hacks we're talking about, where your equipment is radiating the information, are now feasible. They're now feasible, right? And in the case of this particular attack that happened against this financial institution, what they did was spoof a couple APs. They got a man-in-the-middle attack against the APs. They got some of the users to actually associate with the drone instead of associating with the AP, and they were able to pull information out that way. I can foresee a potential for people to say, pull radiation off of cables if they're close enough. MaxSec might start becoming an issue for you, other than well, the government does it, so I need to do it too. You might really need to do this. It's not uncommon for us as geeks to go into data centers and open up, servers and stuff. And I think that as somebody who's gone through FCCB testing for EMI, electromagnetic interference, these things radiate a ton of information. It is almost impossible to move air and keep the RF in. So what are you going to do about this? My recommendation is, if you do not have something scanning for Wi-Fi access points or Wi-Fi sources that are moving around your enterprise that you don't control, you better get that.
I'll take that one step further, Lou, because it should probably be a generalized scanner of your radio
RF
frequencies
noise
that are going, whatever kind of RF noise that's out there, because it could be that they're searching for all kinds of things. So the net here is that one of the best barriers to protect you is distance, right? Is to keep things away. So when some of these protections out there are actually being able to listen to the clicks on a keyboard and be able to pick up passwords from it, or to be able to pick up the radiation coming off of the RAM, because RAM is getting faster and faster. It radiates more. We did an article about this a few months ago. But the thing is, and I was talking to somebody about this, said, yeah, but you got to get really close to that computer to be able to do that. Yeah. But now, if I'm flying a drone in and I can land right on the roof right above that, maybe I'm close enough. Right? If I've got sophisticated enough sensing equipment, maybe I'm close enough. Whatever it is, I'm now able to get closer and closer and closer. And as these drones get smaller and smaller, the thing used to be that if I could walk in and I could drop one of these Wi-Fi pineapples behind a plant and maybe plug it into an outlet, drop it behind, one of those fake trees inside a building, and it could sit there for months and nobody would ever know about it. Well, now I could actually fly it in with a solar panel, so it stays running, and it's just there forever. Right?
This is now well within the realm of feasibility.
This is not science fiction.
Yeah, and so for folks who are counting on physical security to limit electromagnetic access and other access to your network, because I could even foresee having a sophisticated audio array being back-ended by some really good DSPs. I mean, these things have ridiculously good DSPs in them. Yeah, no kidding. So getting the chips to do this stuff,
it's not hard.
I could modify this phone to be a very, very powerful collection system. How many of these things are being thrown away every day? Oh, I upgraded. That's the problem, right? If you find my drone, if you find my crawler, if you find my thing that I magnetically stuck up underneath your eave at a window outside of a meeting room, are you going to find it?
So the net to this is that there are more and more ways that we are becoming vulnerable, and people are getting smarter and smarter about how they attack our networks and they attack our data, and that we need to continue to be vigilant. We need to keep coming up with new ways to counteract that, and we need to keep learning, and we cannot rest on the old ways that we've always done that. A firewall is not the only way that we can rest on protecting our data. And we all know that, but we need to keep learning about new ways. And it now is coming down to more sensors and being aware of these new attack vectors.
So definitely an interesting one, food for thought. I'd be very interested in what you folks think about this and how likely you think this is to come about. But the idea is out there.
The idea is out there.
Yeah. Now you're going to start seeing it get weaponized more and more, because the military is absolutely doing this.
100%.
Absolutely doing this. And it's only one small step, right?
But that is going to cover this episode, and we couldn't do this podcast without listeners like you, and we do want to hear what you think. Are there additional attack vectors that we didn't talk about that maybe we should know about? Are we overblowing this? Is it really not possible for a drone to land on the roof and be able to collect data about what's going on inside that data center? Do you have a different topic you want us to cover? Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com. That's feedback at itsparkcast.com, or hit us up on X at IT SPARCcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. We read every single piece of feedback that we get, and we respond to almost every single one. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That's really going to help this channel grow. If you feel that you're getting valuable information from us and you're being entertained, please make sure you tell your friends and colleagues about us so they can get that same information as well. With that, we're going to turn you back to your day. From the world of enterprise IT, take care.
Thank you.